My name is Fran Wickstrom. I'm here on behalf of the 10th Circuit Historical Society. With me is Senior Judge David K. Winder. Thank you, Judge Winder, for agreeing to be interviewed for part of this 10th Circuit Historical Society project.
I'm very pleased to be here, and particularly with you.
Judge, you were
experience there.
Why is that?
I just want to be with juries and with people, and
Where the action is.
yeah, and I don't want to just remember him. Sure. And Ed got me a job on the county attorney's office, and that changed my life.
But before you
and tried all, Parker Nielsen and I tried all of the criminal cases in the 3rd District. Other than the judgeship, the best job I ever had, which was the United States Attorney. I tried every criminal case in the District of Utah except one tax case from 63 to 65.
I noticed that you have framed Judge Ritter, is that right?
Well, we had cases indicted in the odd years, went to Christensen, and in the even years, they went to Ritter. And so the prosecutors, out of fear of Ritter, filed most of them or had the indictment returned with Christensen. Christensen had to do this because Ritter was hand-picking cases. I mean, there is no way.
Let me read some words of advice that you gave to some newly admitted members of the Utah Bar some years ago. You told them, "The expedient or short-sighted lawyer who fails to fulfill verbal understandings with other lawyers, who presents dubious evidence, who deals loosely with the record, or who misleads judges is quickly pegged. In our bar and in every bar, there are certain lawyers who achieve the enviable and priceless status of a good name. That status is developed gradually by word of mouth from judges in the privacy of their gatherings and from lawyers in theirs. And unlike the litigation you will be handling, be aware that once the verdict of your professional peers is in, there is no formal due process, no rebuttal, no appeal from that verdict."
Well, I remember that, but I'll tell you, in order for the jury system to be accepted and desired, it's up to the trial judge to do certain things that are just absolutely essential, that clear instructions, being on time. It just kills me how many judges and more lawyers show up for jury trials late, which is just really is a black eye to the profession if they do that. Another
Today is June 15 of 2005. It's a beautiful morning here in Salt Lake. It's cool for this time of year. And it's my great honor to interview Judge David Sam of the United States District Court for the District of Utah. Judge Sam, I want to ask you, begin our interview with a question about the bees. Now, you have a beehive in your courtroom. It's just over your right shoulder there. Maybe you can just tell us about it.
Probably, I'm not sure, but I think I'm the only federal judge in the federal judiciary that has a working glass hive in my chambers. And I'm just very happy to have them here because I'm a hobbyist beekeeper, and my father got me my first beehive or 2 beehives when I was about 10 or 11 years of age, and where I was raised, named to them, and they had voted to appoint me city attorney of Duchesne City, and I was just... I'd never been there. Well, I think I had been there to going back and forth to Indiana, but I could not remember Duchesne, and of course after I got there, I thought, well, maybe this is the reason I couldn't remember it. It was such a small place. But Al and I was so thrilled when I got off the phone and said to my wife, I said, this is the greatest honor that could possibly ever happen in my whole professional career to be appointed a city. From those beginnings, I just had a wonderful 14 and a half years.
Now you became county attorney when that was an elected position.
I was elected county attorney,
and
5.5 years, and elected a second term.
And then you were elected as a county commissioner.
I ran for county commissioner, a 2-year term, and I was elected county commissioner also.
Oh.
The one, I don't know, I hope don't say this in any disrespect, but the ones that I remember the most, I appeared twice before Willis Ritter. And I can remember with great detail those 2 appearances.
Tell us about that.
And I don't know that you can say that about, you know, every judge that you appear before, and of course.
Let's talk about your service, your appointment as a federal judge in 1985. You were appointed by President Reagan.
That's correct.
And what was the judicial selection process like?
Well, that was the commission process also, and at that time I think there was 19 members of the commission or the committee.
And then you received a phone call from
Oh yes,
President Reagan.
I'll
Tell
never
us about
forget that call. Okay, that was August 1st, 1985. I was in my chambers in Provo. I was conducting a pretrial. I think Bob Moody, Ron Stanger, Brian Harrison were sitting across my desk. A knock on the door. The door was closed. It's Katie Harris, who was the switchboard operator, and she was very excited. And she said, I invited her to come in. She said, "Judge Sam, the White House is calling." She said, "I've turned my..."
Now, I understand, I believe I remember you telling me once that shortly after you were appointed to the bench, you had a conversation with Sherman Christensen.
Oh yes,
Tell
not
me
long
about
after
that.
I took the bench, he invited me to come over to his chambers, which was in the Wallace Bennett building, and he welcomed me warmly and said, David, how pleased he was that I had the privilege of serving with these great, wonderful judges, and he said, David, there's something I would like you to have. And I was so touched by that. He went behind his desk. It was the Great Seal of the United States, and he took it off the wall.
I need to ask you, Judge Sam, about what is probably the most famous case that you presided over, the Olympic bribery case.
Yeah, the bribery case, which was very highly publicized. I'm impressed with that, you know, this is our role. I think we are the last protector of you and I and everyone else in this country from the oppression of overreaching power and authority, and how that's got to be kept in check. And if it's not kept in check, we are going to lose the great freedoms that we enjoy.
Okay, my name is Steve Nebaker. I'm here with Judge J. Thomas Green in his chambers in Salt Lake City, Utah. And the date is March 8th, 2006. And I'm here to interview Judge Green in connection with his service as a United States District Court judge for the state of Utah for approximately 20 years, going on 21.
I was involved in bar work a great deal, and you and I used to kid about the committees that we both attended, Supreme Court Rules Committee and bar committees, several. I was president of the Utah State Bar in '71, and then I got involved in the American Bar Association as a delegate at large. A lot of things that have happened. But for instance, the vanishing trial. When I started being a judge, I had non-stop trials. I had a trial just about every 10 days, and there were others ready to be tried. Nationally, both civil and criminal cases were up almost to 10% of the cases that were decided, and they were decided by juries and by trials. Recently,
We also talked about the changes that you've seen as a judge You mentioned how many cases are being tried now as compared to how many were tried when you first came on. Do you have any comments about the lawyers that appear before you?
Well, I think the attitude of lawyers toward each other has noticeably changed. I think a filing of motions to disqualify is not uncommon at all. It's virtually a two-track case. There's a case on the merits, and the other is a case that the lawyers have against each other. And,
Judge, one other question that I'd like to ask you that has come to my mind as we've been talking, and that is, what is the hardest thing you think you have to do as a judge?
you know, I thought that being a judge would be something like the practice of law, where you would have certain conferences with your senior partners and make decisions jointly. I was used to doing that, but it never happened. You know, you're a sole practitioner. You're on your own. And, you can represent the public and make a difference, dispensing justice.
My name is Jim Holbrook, and I'm honored today to interview Bruce S. Jenkins, United States District Court Judge for the District of Utah, as a part of the 10th Circuit's Oral History Project.
Is there. I'm obligated to follow the law as it's written and to do the best I can with what I have to work with. But
And I understand that one of the people who read those newspaper reports and paid attention to this was someone that you had as a law professor when you were at law school. And
that was Willis Ritter.
and he contacted you.
He did. He asked me to come down and talk to him.
And what happened?
Well, he had a vacancy in the bankruptcy court, and he wanted me to fill it.
And what I'd like to do now would be to shift our attention to one case in particular. And let me hand you this, which is like a ream of paper, literally.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, that's the opinion we published in the case called Irene Allen and others versus the United States of America. It was a case that I was randomly assigned after I had come on, and which involved an action brought by roughly 1,200 plus plaintiffs against the United States of America, claiming that they had suffered damage as the result of the fallout from low-level radiation from the atomic testing conducted in the deserts of Nevada at Yucca Flats. And it is in this sense that the lawyer is a teacher and the judge is his pupil. Well, I love what I do, and I always have. Wherever I was, quite frankly, I thoroughly enjoy what I do.
Like there is, do you have a gavel, and where is it?
I have a gavel, a huge gavel. I've got it over there on my shelf. It was made for me by Mark Garf, a neighbor. Mark gave me that when I was sworn in. I'd had gavels up at the State House as well. I don't use a gavel. I don't use a gavel.
Hello, my name is Diana Hagan, and it's my honor today to interview U.S. District Court Judge Tina Campbell on behalf of the 10th Circuit Historical Society. Judge Campbell was appointed to the bench in 1995 and has served for just over 16 years. She took senior status 1 year ago. What other kinds of cases did you do at the U.S. Attorney's Office?
I was there for 14 years, and I started just doing, everything. It was a small office. We were only about 14 people, as what we are now. You are now. How many do you have now?
50, more than 50, I think.
We were 14 people, and at times I was the only woman. So I was criminal. I did bank robberies and assaults and drug cases and kidnappings, like you, and sex crimes. But about my last 5 years, I did mainly white collar. And when I left, I was head of the bank fraud unit.
Do you have any memories? When you were at the U.S. Attorney's Office, you developed a great reputation for being very meticulous and hardworking and prepared and
the Duchess of Dirt.
That's right, the Duchess of Dirt. Tell us about that nickname.
The Duchess of Dirt. I don't know how. I'm afraid I take pride in that name, and that probably tells you something sick about me. But this happened particularly when I was doing white-collar crimes, and you know how that goes. There is no question about what a defendant did in a white-collar crime. The question always is, what was his? I never had a woman white-collar defendant. What was his intent? And very hard. There were no women district judges on our bench, which is a situation that still needs to be changed, but I'll save that for another day. And I remember sitting at the breakfast table, and I was reading that Judge Jenkins was going to go senior. And I, by that time, had been trying cases in the federal court exclusively for 14 years. And I thought, it's about time that a woman got on. And I've been there for 14 years. I might as well give it a try. And I thought, well, if they need a woman on the bench, I'm their man.
In 2007, you received or were named Woman of the Year by the Women Lawyers of Utah.
I think you were the one, you were involved in that.
I was one of your nominators, absolutely.
Thank you.
What do you find to be the most difficult part of being a judge?
Well, maybe I'm just getting soft in my old age, but I get no pleasure out of sending people to prison. I particularly don't get pleasure, and I find it terribly difficult to send people to prison, giving them sentences that I believe are too harsh. And that will happen now, since the guidelines are only advisory, but I still have to face mandatory minimums. Because I think I have learned that to be a judge, it is so much a matter of temperament. Now, I always treating people with respect,